Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today is November 7th. The off-season is here. Qualifying offers have been given. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. My name is Steven. This is the middle of the order. How are we doing today, ladies and gentlemen? It's been about a week, 6 days since the World Series has ended. The off season has pretty much kicked off. We're in the swing of things now. It's time for the meetings, the rumors, all of the fun stuff that happens in the off season. And I'll be giving it to you guys here every Mondays and Fridays. As usual, the episodes will be dropping. And it's kind of, 6 days, you kind of calm down a little bit from the World Series. You start looking into 2026 now. That's where most teams are, I think all teams actually, are kind of aiming towards their focuses now. Most teams that had a manager slot, I'm pretty sure all of them have been filled in now. We're just going to get news and hear what players are saying and hear what's happening here and what's this team going to do, what that team's going to do, all of that exciting mumbo-jumbo here. So with that being said, let's take a look at some of the upcoming days for the offseason coming out. Yesterday, the NL Silver Sluggers were announced. We'll be doing that a little bit later on in the episode here. We have the AL Silver Sluggers tonight, so of course those will be talked about on Monday. Also beginning on Monday, November 10th to 13th, it's the awards week. So we'll find out who were the MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Years, and Manager of the Years. We'll talk about the finalists coming up a little bit later on as well. The next important date to note, and kind of, for the next 2 weeks here, qualifying offers must be accepted by November 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, qualifying offers were given. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the episode as well. But those are the most important days coming up in terms of the baseball off season here. So the big thing that happened over the last 5 days, I would say, were all the options. A player option, team option, mutual options, vesting options, all the options. Those were being accepted, declined, etc. We're going to be going over all those really quickly. I have them segmented in terms of players that declined their options or vesting options or mutual options, then players that accepted, teams that declined, whether it was vesting or mutual, etc., and then teams that accepted. So makes it a little bit cleaner here because there is quite a lot. So stand back. We're going to run through these and I'll let you know some of my thoughts if they're needed. So starting off with players that declined options. First one being Cody Bellinger, declining $25 million with the Yankees. He will head to free agents, trying to get more than that. Alex Bregman with the Red Sox, he declined a 2-year, $80 million deal. That's $40 million a year. I'm not sure if it's cultural or if it's just he thinks he can get more in what I would say is somewhat of a weaker market this year. There are some notable names. But there isn't that much high-end talent available. Edwin Diaz with the Mets declined a 2-year, $38 million. Robert Suarez declined 2-year, $16 million with the Padres. Those are two guys who are top bullpen arms. These guys should get some pretty pennies on the dollar there. Michael King, he declined a 1-year, $15 million deal with the Padres. Randall Grichuk declining a 1-year, $5 million with the Royals. Not sure if he just thinks he can get more, if he didn't want to stay in Kansas City. Interesting stuff there. Big one here, Pete Alonso declining a 2-year, $54 million with the Mets. He kind of mentioned that at the end of the season, so we kind of knew this was coming. This officially confirms it. Whether he stays with the Mets and tries to earn more money, whether he ends up somewhere else. It's hard to envision Pete Alonso somewhere else, but he's a dog. He had a great season. He deserves to get paid, and the Mets are a big spending team, so if they're not going to pay him, he'll find someone that will. Ha-Seong Kim declined a $16 million deal with the Braves. He was interesting. Of course, spent most of the season hurt. But he's a top-end player, a decent middle infielder. I think he can get north of $20 million there. Lucas Giolito declines a 1-year, $19 million deal with the Red Sox. Brandon Woodruff declining a 1-year, $20 million deal with the Brewers. So the Brewers losing a top-end starter there. Of course, Woodruff spent some time on the IL this year. Martin Perez declines $10 million with the White Sox. Jorge Polanco, the hero that sent the Mariners to the ALCS, he declined $6 million. Not sure how his deal was shaped to have only $6 million tied in for a club option or a player option there, but he will move on and find a much more lucrative deal somewhere else. Then lastly, Harrison Bader declines $10 million with the Phillies. Great defender, decent bat, nowhere close to being a better batsman than a defender, but 10 mil, decent amount of money for Bader. So interesting to see what he thinks he can get in free agency there. So those were all of the players that declined options there. Moving on, we'll get to the players that accepted. So players that are still with these teams. So all those players that I just mentioned, they're in free agency now. They're in that free agent pool. AJ Minter is the first guy here. He is staying with the Mets for $11 million, exercises his deal there. Tyler O'Neill exercises a 2-year, $33 million deal with the Oilers. So he will be there this year as well as 2027. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. exercises his 1-year, $13 million deal with the D-backs. Wandy Peralta, a 1-year, $4.45 million deal with the Padres. Trevor Story exercises a 2-year deal, $55 million with the Red Sox. So good stuff there for him in Boston. Jack Flaherty exercises a 1-year, $20 million deal with the Tigers. Frankie Montas, $17 million with the Mets. Jock Peterson, no surprise here, $18.5 million with the Rangers. He had a horrendous year to be making $18.5 million in 2026, but maybe he can bounce back with Texas. And the big interesting one that I'll be talking about a little bit more later, Shane Bieber, exercising a $16 million player option with the Toronto Blue Jays. This one is very interesting to me, and I'll talk about that one a little bit more later. As I just mentioned, team options that were declined by some teams, the guys that don't want these guys on the team. The Mariners are declining $12 million for the year for Mitch Garver, so he will head into free agency. The Royals are declining a 1-year, $12 million for Michael Lorenzen. The Brewers declining 1-year, $12 million for Danny Jansen. $12 million for a backup catcher is a lot of money. The Oilers declined a 1-year, $5.5 million for Jorge Mateo, so he will head into free agency as well. The Brewers are taking both Rhys Hoskins and Jose Quintana into free agency. Brewers declining $18 million for Hoskins, $15 million for Jose Quintana. The Red Sox declined $12 million with Liam Hendriks. I feel so bad for Liam Hendriks. This guy was a top arm in baseball for such a long time. In the last couple of years, I just feel like I haven't seen him at his best because he's either been injured or when he has been healthy, it's been for such a short period of time and he hasn't been that great. But man, would I love to see Liam Hendriks in the major leagues for a full season, healthy, and dealing out of a back-end bullpen. So hopefully he can land somewhere there. Rockies declining $4 million with Kyle Farmer. Yankees declining $5 million with Jonathan Loaisiga. The Padres declined $7 million with Elias Diaz, backup catcher. Cubs declined $10 million for Justin Turner. Of course, he's an old vet. We'll see if anyone picks him up or if that was the end of Justin Turner. The Reds are declining $12 million with Austin Hayes. He had a pretty decent year, but $12 million is, a lot for a player. Reds declining $6.5 million for Scott Barlow. Rays declining $11 million for Pete Fairbanks. Damn, didn't realize Fairbanks was such a lucrative contract. The Braves are declining $8 million for David Fletcher, which I don't know how that even was a possibility. David Fletcher had one great year with the Angels, I think in 2021. And I feel like I haven't seen this guy much at all this year. Was he even playing with the Braves this year? I don't remember Fletcher much. The Tigers are declining Paul Sewald for $10 million, and then the Guardians are declining $6 million for John Means, who of course has had some injury problems in recent years, hasn't been at his best, and when he was rehabbing, wasn't great. So $6 million on a risk for a middle end guy, but hopefully Means can bounce back. This guy threw a no-hitter a couple years ago, so people forget that. The big one for me here, which is I will also be talking about, the Cubs declined a 3-year, $57.75 million option for Shota Imanaga, which allowed him to get a player option for $15.25 million for this year which he declines. The Cubs decline a team option for 3 years. Imanaga declines a player option then for 15 mil. He will head to free agency. Did not see that coming, to be honest with you. I didn't think the Cubs would decline that option. I know it was kind of a down-ish year for Imanaga, but he's been a very solid guy, essentially the ace of that staff at times. That one's really interesting to see Imanaga not... If Imanaga signs somewhere else, that's a very shocking decision by the Cubs. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as well, because I have more to say for that. Lastly here, team options that were accepted by some teams here for players. The Brewers are exercising $8 million for Freddie Peralta, so the ace of that Brewers staff is only making $8 million this year. The White Sox are exercising $20 million for Luis Robert Jr., the only player outside of maybe Colson Montgomery. No, they had some guys step up this year. The White Sox might be interesting next year, hopefully. The Mariners exercising $6 million for Andres Munoz, one of the best closers in the game, making $6 million. Some of these contracts, man, you just scratch your head. You're like, what were you thinking? But then again, you signed as a young kid this big lucrative contract at the time. If you play like ass, it looks great. If you become the superstar, well, then the team loves it. And speaking of that, the Braves are exercising $7 million for Ozzie Albies, one of the best second basemen in the game. Makes $7 million a year. The Mets are exercising $4.75 for Brooks Raley. The Braves exercising $18 million for Chris Sale. Will be with the Braves leading that rotation. The Yankees exercising $3 million for Tim Hill, who will stick around in pinstripes. The Phillies, $9 million for Jose Alvarado. He will stay with the Phils. Padres taking Ramon Laureano's $5.5 million option. The Rays taking Brandon Lau, an $11.5 million option there. Dodgers taking Alex Vesia, $3.55 million, as well as Max Muncy for $10 million. So those two guys lock up. And the last one here, first is the trade. The Cubs traded Andrew Kittredge to the Orioles in exchange for cash considerations, and then with that, the Orioles took the $9 million club option for Andrew Kittredge. So Andrew Kittredge will be with Baltimore for 2026. Those were all of, or at least I think 97% of all the deals and options that we need to discuss here. So let's talk about the two most surprising ones here that I mentioned that I was going to talk about. The first being Shota Imanaga, who signed this contract with the Cubs. And you're thinking, okay, we've seen some Japanese players and Korean players that have come over recently getting more, impressive contracts. He signed 5 years with the team option. Well, it was a 5-year deal total, but had the 2-year stop. This is where we're at right now. So in 2024, last year, pitched to a 2.91 ERA in 29 starts. He had 15-3 record, had a 3 WAR, was an All-Star, finished 4th in Rookie of the Year voting, and 5th in the Cy Young voting. He had a phenomenal year. Was very impressive. This year, not as good, but still, for MLB standards, a really solid year. A 3.73 ERA in 25 starts. He missed a couple starts. A 9-8 record, tough one there. 1.5 WAR. So in the 2 years that he was with the Cubs, 4.5, 24 and 11 record, a 3.28 ERA in 54 starts with an All-Star, a top 5 Cy Young finish, and then finishing 4th in Rookie of the Year. This is very solid. And when you think of, the market for some of these players and how this goes and everything, 3 years at $57.75 million is not that bad. That's a really solid amount of money to give to a very good starting pitcher. When you do the AAV there, that's like just under $20 million a year. I think Shota Imanaga is well in his rights to be making more than $20 million a year. So for the Cubs to decline that, I just got to scratch my head a little bit and think, what were they thinking? I generally don't know. Imanaga completely in his right to decline $15 million because, he's well in his right to be making more than 20, so why should he be making 15? That to me doesn't make any sense. So no issue there. But for the Cubs, I think Imanaga can easily find a pitching deal where he's making, 4-year, $80 million contract. I think that's well in his rights and well in the type of pitcher he's been. He's a very good pitcher. And, if think about if Justin Steele, if Justin Steele was healthy, if he didn't get hurt at the beginning of the year, maybe the Cubs would have been fine without Imanaga. Take away Imanaga this year, the Cubs are not making the postseason. They're not making to the NLDS, let alone the postseason. So I find this move very shocking. I think Imanaga will find a contract. If it is with the Cubs, I don't know how the Cubs can decline that option and then think they can re-sign him for less. So I don't think Shota Imanaga stays with the Cubs. I think, them declining that 3-year option maybe burns a bridge or two, and I think that's going to lead to Imanaga finding a new home where, again, I think he will be making north of 20 mil. I think he's, 21 mil a year AAV. I think he can find a deal like that. I think a team will pay up for a deal like that. Especially in a pitcher's market where I think overall, there's not the craziest selection of players. There's some very, head-turning players. But when you think about it, I think Imanaga, in terms of WAR this year, was 5th or 6th in WAR, maybe one more less. I can't remember off the top of my head. I did remember seeing it, but kind of shocking that he's a free agent considering he signed that 5-year contract, and he talked about how much he loved Chicago. I don't know why you wouldn't want a guy like this around for just south of 20 million. It's like 19 point, what was I said 19.75 or something like that. The AAV value here for Imanaga, 19.25. So interesting there. We'll see what he ends up signing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he makes less than that, but just from what I've seen and from covering baseball, from watching baseball, I've seen pitchers who pitch way worse than Imanaga get paid 16, 17 million, and Imanaga is very good, so I don't understand why he can't be making 20 to 25 million a year. So that's one thing that's very interesting. And speaking of, pitching market and 15 to 25 million, I want to talk about Shane Bieber exercising his player option with the Toronto Blue Jays for 16 million. The Blue Jays traded for Shane Bieber at the trade deadline this year from the Guardians, And Bieber, he was coming off Tommy John surgery. We hadn't seen him pitch in a really long time, but he was very close. He was about to start rehabbing. So the Blue Jays, who needed a spark, needed that extra depth piece potentially, took a chance and traded for Shane Bieber, who, had the 16 million player option. And everyone's thinking, well, okay, if he comes back, if he goes to the rehab, comes back, pitches well, there's no shot he doesn't take that. But if he comes back, pitches, struggles, then there was maybe he stays back, maybe he's not himself. Who knows what happens? You got to think Shane Bieber, he's been around the league for a while. He spent 7 years with the Guardians, into which he got a 2-time All-Star, an ERA title. He has a Gold Glove. He's a Triple Crown winner and a Cy Young. Yes, you could say, hey, that was the COVID year. Does that really count? He pitched a 1.63 ERA. He was 8-1. He was phenomenal that year. Yes, shortened season, but still, the year before that, he was an All-Star, finished 4th in Cy Young voting. The year after that, he was an All-Star. The year after that, Gold Glove, 7th in Cy Young. And then, 2024, he made 2 starts, won both of them, got hurt. The last time we saw Shane Bieber was in 2024. He pitched 12 innings, allowed 10 hits, struck out 20, didn't give up a run, and then went down with Tommy John. And when we came back this year, he made 7 starts with the Blue Jays, pitching 40 innings to a 3.57 ERA, 4.2. When you look at his career numbers, his 8 years in the big leagues, a 3.24 ERA, nearly 20 points of WAR, 66-34, 995 strikeouts. He's been a beast. He's a dog. He is way better to earn, 16 million a year. This is the type of guy, and mind you, age-wise, he's only 30, so he could have found himself a 5-year, 150 mil plus contract, something like that. That's what Shane Bieber could have got. But instead, takes the cut of his pay, essentially, to stay with the Blue Jays for another year for 16 million. The whole World Series, the reports were coming out on how great the culture was, how amazing the team was. You got 26 guys all talking about how much they love this specific Toronto Blue Jays team. On Instagram, you have all of the players' wives and girlfriends talking about how amazing of an experience it was for them and their families. Max Scherzer, his wife, said in all of the years, like, she has never felt more of a home than this year. Max Scherzer, a guy who's going into the Hall of Fame, who has spent years with the Tigers and the Nationals, jumping from the Dodgers, Mets, Rangers, etc. This was the team, a one-year stop in Toronto, that she felt the most in love. Shane Bieber's, I believe, wife said that this was the year that she fell in love with baseball again. It was obviously tough for her dealing with the Tommy John as well, and having Bieber home and everything. That's nice, but, it's obviously a very different personal experience that we'll never really understand. And for her to fall in love with the game again, it was just like, wow, maybe he will stay. But, no one really thought that because of how well he pitched, how well he's been a pitcher. So to stay with the Blue Jays for $60 million, it really shows the kind of culture the Jays had. Runner-up in the World Series. This was a very impressive thing for me to see. Very happy for him and for the Blue Jays, because I think that's a really good deal for Toronto. And I think Bieber is going to have a really fun first full year with the Blue Jays. So I wanted to mention those two really quickly because I think both of those are very interesting and good stories and good feel-good stories. So, yeah. One is more interesting than the other, but either way. Moving on here, let's get into some of the other stuff here. The NL Silver Sluggers were handed out yesterday. We've got we'll go through those really quickly here. So for catcher, Hunter Goodman wins it from Colorado. First baseman, Pete Alonso. That should help in his free agency hunt. Second baseman, Ketel Marte from the Diamondbacks. Third baseman, Manny Machado. Shortstop, Geraldo Perdomo. That one surprised me. He had a very solid year, though, so good for him. Outfielder, Corbin Carroll. That's the third Diamondback. Man, Arizona, man, if they didn't have such a slow start to the season, they could have been in the playoffs. They're a very good team. I'm excited to see what they bring into 2026. The other two outfielders, Kyle Tucker and Juan Soto. Juan Soto, he has won a Silver Slugger, I think, for 6 years in a row. He's the active leader in that streak. And he's also, I believe, the first player in MLB history to win a Silver Slugger 3 straight years with 3 different teams. He, of course, won it in 2023 with the Padres, 2024 with the Yankees, and now in 2025 with the Mets. The other Silver Slugger winners, Shohei Ohtani won it for DH, and then Alec Burleson from the Cardinals won it as a utility player. And the offensive team of the year was, of course, the World Series winning Los Angeles Dodgers. So those are your NL Silver Slugger winners. ALs are later today, and then, of course, I'll be covering those on Monday's episode, so we'll wait for that. The award finalists. So the awards are coming. That will start next week. We did get our top 3 for each of the awards, so I'll be going over all of those really quickly here and making my predictions here. So from NL Manager of the Year, the finalists: Terry Francona of the Cincinnati Reds, Pat Murphy of the Milwaukee Brewers, and Rob Thompson of the Philadelphia Phillies. Terry Francona led this Reds team to their first postseason in I don't know how long off the top of my head. It was a very impressive year there. Of course, the Reds kind of snuck in last minute over the Mets and, kind of got embarrassed in the wild card round by the Dodgers, but still, it was an impressive feat for them regardless. Rob Thompson, of course, led a Phillies team to a very stacked NL East division. Of course, that helps when the Braves, fell short right off the start of the year and never were able to pick up their feet. And the Mets kind of shooting themselves in the foot as well. So, when at the start of the season, you're thinking, it's a 3-way battle. It ended up being Philly from, I think, July on. We kind of felt like it was going to be Philly. So, still an impressive year for them there. And then Pat Murphy with the Brewers. I mean, I always write them off at the start of every year. I never believe in them. And every year they prove me wrong. And this year was the biggest prove wrong because they finished first in the NL. Of course, they did get embarrassed by the Dodgers in the NLCS, but still, Pat Murphy, I think, is easily the manager of the year. What I saw from him this year was fantastic stuff. His interviews are always great. Very likable guy. He really shot up the rankings for me in terms of managers. So I'm going to say Pat Murphy easily, hands down, wins this award. For AL Managers of the Year, John Schneider, excuse me, from the Toronto Blue Jays, Stephen Vogt from the Cleveland Guardians, and then Dan Wilson from the Seattle Mariners. Stephen Vogt, I think, won it last year. This division was won by the Tigers back in June. And Cleveland didn't stay dead. They came back. They handled Detroit in the month of September. They came back to steal the division away from the Tigers. Of course, did lose to them in the wild card round, but this is about the regular season. Very impressive year from Stephen Vogt. Dan Wilson, the Seattle Mariners team, was third in the AL West behind teams like the Rangers and the Astros. The A's were hot on their heels. They make the decision to fire Scott Service. Dan Wilson gets promoted, and he takes this team and turns them into the AL West champions that they were for the first time since 2001. So it had been a while. Dan Wilson, a very impressive year, very impressive half year. Remember, wasn't even the manager at the start of the year. But how about John Schneider, man? I mean, you can question some of the manager decisions he makes in terms of the bullpen and how long he leaves starters out, specifically in the postseason. But he took a Blue Jays team that finished dead last in the AL East in 2024 and completely flipped the script in 2025, turned them into AL East division winners for the first time since 2015, and took this team all the way to the World Series. It's not even close. John Schneider will win the AL Manager of the Year. I would be shocked if it's not. Easily, John Schneider wins this one. Moving on, NL Rookie of the Year. I think this one's the closest one that we have here. Drake Baldwin from the Braves, Caleb Durbin from the Brewers, and Cade Horton from the Cubs. I think this is easily the most neck and neck one because Drake Baldwin, he kind of bursted onto the scene first, led it for the Braves because Sean Murphy wasn't healthy enough. So Baldwin started off with, catching at the beginning of the year. He kind of took off when Sean Murphy came back. There was some in-between decisions between sometimes he would catch, sometimes he would bench, sometimes he would even DH. Overall, a very solid first year for Baldwin. I think the Braves have a new, main catcher if Sean Murphy ever were to leave, if he ever gets too expensive, etc. Very solid year for him. Caleb Durbin, I think, was one of the many new names to learn on the Brewers team that always has these new guys come up and step up and contribute in big ways. And he wasn't an everyday player at times, sometimes coming off the bench still, but again, very solid stuff there. And then Cade Horton, I think, was a very solid option, kind of stepping up when Justin Steele went down. Had some decent numbers, but then towards the end of the year, he got really hot. I'm pretty sure it was August or September. There was 1 month towards the end of the year. He was just on fire. He made like 5 starts with like a 1.something ERA, I'm pretty sure. He's been phenomenal. And honestly, if I look at all three of these guys right now, I would lean Cade Horton to win. But I'd also... I wouldn't be surprised if any of these guys, like they all deserve this one. I think this one's a very close race, but right now, if I was going to say one, I would pick Cade Horton. I think the Cubs were in the playoffs for a reason, and it was part of the reason that Cade Horton was such a valuable asset to this Cubs team. So he'd my pick for the NL Rookie of the Year. For the AL Rookie of the Year, we have Jacob Wilson from the A's, Nick Kurtz from the A's, and then Roman Anthony from the Red Sox. I think if Roman Anthony was able to stay healthy, he went down with an injury towards the end of the year, also came up late in the year. He would definitely make a case. I think this is the Boston Red Sox future. I do love Roman Anthony a lot. I think he's a fantastic player. Very excited to see him in 2026. So good stuff there. But he's easily coming third in this one for me. This one's between the A's, Jacob Wilson and Nick Kurtz. I mean, Jacob Wilson, he was at the start of the season. He was very solid the whole year round. I love Jacob Wilson. I think he's a top shortstop in the league now. Was very impressed with the season that he had, and I thought he was going to win it easily from like April on. But then Nick Kurtz came up, and this guy was a beast. This guy was hitting bombs left, right, and center. He had such an insane first year offensively. To think what his numbers could have looked like if he was at the start of the season with this A's team, of course, got called up mid-season. But I think he wins it. I think what he's able to do, he had a 4-homer game for crying out loud. His offensive numbers were absolutely insane. I'm very excited to see if he will have a sophomore slump or if he will continue to pick up and be one of the game's best hitters, because that's what's at stake for Nick Kurtz. I think he wins the AL Rookie of the Year over Jacob Wilson. So that's half of them down. We got the NL Cy Young now. Christopher Sanchez, Paul Skeens, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto of the Dodgers. Of course, Skeens of the Pirates and Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies. How about the year Christopher Sanchez had, by the way? Not an all-star, but finishes top 3 in Cy Young. Maybe one of the biggest all-star snubs of all times, essentially. I forget if he ended up getting in terms of reserve when one guy didn't get it originally. But still, crazy stuff there. Excuse me, once again, still coming over the sickness that I've had the last couple of episodes here. This was easily Paul Skeens. There's no debate. Paul Skeens will win it. Not even close. He's the best pitcher in baseball, and it doesn't come close. I think Paul Skeens is easily handily winning the Cy Young there. For the AL Cy Young, we got Hunter Brown of the Astros, Tarek Skubal of the Tigers, and then Garrett Crochet of the Red Sox. Hunter Brown, a very amazing year for him. Good step up when some of the other pitchers in their rotation stepped down. Really good to be finishing top 3 in Cy Young, but I think he is easily finishing 3rd in the race here. I think this comes down to the two southpaws in Skubal and Crochet. And as good of a year as Crochet had, I think Tarek Skubal is as elite as they come, and he will win back-to-back Cy Youngs. That's my prediction there. I think Skubal and Skeens run the pitching right now, run the Cy Young Awards. So that's what I have there. And then lastly, the NL MVP and AL MVP. So for the NL MVP, we have Shohei Ohtani of the Dodgers, Kyle Schwarber of the Phillies, and Juan Soto of the Mets. How good was Soto this year? I think he'll come 3rd. I think Schwarber will come 2nd, and I think Ohtani will come 1st. Kyle Schwarber coming 2nd in MVP voting is great for his free agency, though. But Ohtani will easily win it. He's, God's gift of a baseball player, and we all get to enjoy his performances on the field. So that's an easy decision there. And then for the AL MVP, you have Aaron Judge of the Yankees, Kyle Raleigh of the Mariners, and Jose Ramirez of the Guardians. Jose Ramirez might go down as the best player to never win an MVP because he's always ending up coming 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Never can find the year where he's that good, but he's consistently been one of the best players in baseball for years now. And he will happily take his 3rd place, but man, he deserves an MVP at some point in his career, man. He's been so good. This comes down to Judge and Kyle Raleigh. It's been this since, June, July. We've been talking about the MVP race being Judge versus Raleigh. Over and over, it's been these two. And Aaron Judge had a phenomenal year, one of his best years, not in terms of his home run strength, but still hit plenty of home runs, but his numbers all the way around. I mean, he had over 300 average. He led on OPS, I'm pretty sure, for the entire season. Didn't lose it at the start of the season and was kind of carried through it. One of the game's best players offensively this year. He 100% deserves the MVP award. I think he will win it, but I think Cal deserves it. I think, because you got to think, to do this while catching, while being a primary catcher, while being a switch hitter, to break all these records that he has, most home runs by a Mariner, most home runs by a switch hitter, most home runs by a catcher, most home runs by a switch hitting catcher, like all these things, accumulate to an overall just incredible year from Raleigh. And, the average isn't there and the other numbers aren't, as explosive as Aaron Judge. And if you look at MVP overall, it's how you determine what an MVP is. Because I think if you take away Judge, the Yankees, obviously this year would struggle because of their defense and all the other stuff that was going on with the Yankees. But I think the Yankees could still be a playoff team without Judge. Take away Cal, I don't think the Mariners make it to the playoffs, let alone the ALCS. So in terms of that, I would also give a notch to Cal. So I hope Cal Raleigh wins it, but Aaron Judge's year was really impressive, so I wouldn't be surprised either way. But one of these guys will win it. I'm hoping Cal. I'm thinking Judge. Who knows? Those are all the award finalists and my thoughts and predictions for that. That took much longer than I thought. Moving on here, we got to talk about Munetaka Murakami, because this is a big story that got posted earlier this morning. he will be posted. We knew about this. We kind of had this feeling. We know some other players from the Japanese league, from the Korean leagues, etc. Some of them will most likely get posted throughout the season as well. But Murakami already getting posted, already getting that clock started. He is the big left-handed power third baseman free agent that we saw in the World Baseball Classic back in 2022. That's where I learned about this guy. This is where I learned this guy was an absolute beast. And yeah, it's going to be very excited to see which team will take him up. Of course, the postings, the way it works is a little bit different than, your run-of-the-mill unrestricted free agents that we usually have. Murakami, now that he's posted, that will start, will start tomorrow exactly. He will have 45 days to come to a decision with a major league team. So essentially by Christmas, I believe Murakami will sign with any MLB team, and we'll know which team that is, and that is very exciting. So his rumors will start. There's plenty already. Everyone's looking for a big left-handed third baseman bat that's got plenty of power, so he's going to be a top prize. His contract will be very interesting to see how it lands. So that's the big news coming out of the NPB. Of course, other players may or may not be posted. There's some that we assume and some that we'll have to wait and see. But for now, Murakami will enter the free agent pool. He's the only one that has entered so far. Some other guys will wait and see when they officially get posted. So with that being said, we've talked a lot about a lot of different things. We got to talk about the top free agents, and there's plenty of good free agents, plenty of all right players, but I've picked out what I think are the cream of the crop just to go over some of these guys. I'm not doing predictions yet. I'm going to wait a little bit, maybe do that Monday or maybe even next week, but this is just the guys that we'll be talking about a lot this offseason and waiting for these guys to sign. So for me, the biggest one, Kyle Tucker from the Cubs, had a really solid year, really great first half. Second half slumped a little bit, but kind of figured it out towards the end. He's an elite bat. He will find a nice contract there. Bo Bichette, for me, is the biggest infielder prize to be won. Shortstop, second base, question marks are abound. His offseason will be very interesting to follow. Does he just re-sign with the Blue Jays, or does another team outbid them? What's he looking for? Interesting to see. Does he want to stay with Vlad, etc.? Plenty of questions regarding his camp. Some other guys, Dylan Cease. We mentioned Munetaka Murakami. He's a top prize as well in my mind. Alex Bregman opting out makes him a top prize. Framber Valdez, Cody Bellinger. Kyle Schwarber is going to finish second in MVP voting. He's a free agent. Ranger Suarez, Pete Alonso, Josh Naylor, Edwin Diaz, Michael King, Zach Gallen, Devin Williams. Hey, down year for sure, but maybe that's just being in the Bronx. Sometimes players don't play well as the Yankees. So interesting stuff there. Brandon Woodruff, Eugenio Suarez, Robert Suarez, Shota Imanaga, Jorge Polanco, JT Realmuto, the top catcher prize potentially, Trent Grisham, Gleyber Torres, and Ryan Helsley. Yes, he had a bad year since coming over from the Cardinals to the Mets. When he joined the Mets, he was god-awful, but man, he has been a very top-end closing pitcher for the longest time with the Cardinals, even at the beginning of this year. I still think he's a top arm as well, so to me, those are the top free agents. There's plenty of other guys to mention. If you go through just quickly, just position to position, it's JT Realmuto and then what? Victor Caratini, Danny Jansen. So, there's the difference there. Pete Alonso, we mentioned, Josh Naylor, guys like Ryan O'Hearn, Carlos Santana, Luis Arias, some interesting options there. Second baseman, Gleyber Torres, Willie Castro, Polanco, guys there. Shortstops, Bichette, Kim, kind of Falefa, third baseman's Bregman, Suarez, DeYoung. So you can see the top two and then the drop off kind of thing, right? Left fielders, Austin Hayes, Andujar, sure, some options there. Center fielders, Cody Bellinger, Harrison Bader, Grisham, Cedric Mullins. He had a really tough year, but maybe he bounces back a little bit. Right fielders, Mike Yastrzemski. He's a top guy. Max Kepler, Starling Marte, some options there. Marcelo Zuna, 5.9 WAR this year with the Braves. He's the free agent. Plenty of starting pitchers. Chris Bassett, Nick Martinez, Merrill Kelly, Zach Littell, Patrick Corbin, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Adrian Hauser, Miles Michaelis. Plenty of options throughout the list. Of course, relief pitchers as well. Diaz, Suarez, Raciel Iglesias, Sean Armstrong, Kenley Jansen. 38 years old, he can still swing a little bit. So there are plenty of options among the league. Those are just a handful of guys that I think were the best of the best, and the guys that I'll be following most heavily throughout the offseason here. Which brings us now to, I guess, the last little bit to talk about, and that was the qualifying offers. They have officially been given out. 13 players have been given out the qualifying offer, which is sitting at this year 1 year just over $22 million. The 13 players that have gotten them are Kyle Tucker, Kyle Schwarber, Bo Bichette, Framber Valdez, Dylan Cease, Ranger Suarez, Edwin Diaz, Zach Gallen, Shota Imanaga, Michael King, Trent Grisham, Gleyber Torres, and Brandon Woodruff. Those are the 13 guys. Most times we don't see the qualifying offer get taken. I'm pretty sure since it's been a thing that's happened, I think only 14 players, I think I read something like that, have ever taken a qualifying offer. Last year we did have one. Nick Martinez took the 1 year deal with the Reds. Of course, to get a qualifying offer, you'd have to have never gotten one before and be a first-time, free agent, essentially, or be a free agent. I'd expect most of these guys to decline it. The one interesting thing for me, actually, is that Kyle Schwarber got one. I didn't realize that he never got one. I mean, this guy's been around the league a long time. He was with the Cubs, spent the time with the Red Sox and the Nationals, but because he kind of gets traded between seasons because you have to be with the team for the full year, for you to get one. So a guy like Ryan Helsley, who was traded, he couldn't get one with the Mets. But yeah, very interesting stuff there. So yeah, I'm surprised Schwarber never got one, but he got one this year. He'll definitely decline that, finishing top 3 in MVP voting. I'd expect... Who do I expect? Imanaga maybe takes it. $22 million. I mean, I mentioned that he's worth about 20 plus mil, but I think he can get a longer contract, but we'll see. Michael King, he turned down a $16 million player option. So this is an extra, $6 million. So maybe that makes a break a difference for him. Trent Grisham had a career year. I think he was going to try to get a longer contract, but maybe he takes it. Gleyber Torres, same thing, $22 million. That's a decent amount of money. So, there are some guys that you can maybe see taking it. There are some guys you definitely can't see taking it, like Bichette and Valdez and Cease and Suarez and Diaz and Tucker. Maybe Zach Gallen takes it even because, he had a down year with the Diamondbacks. He takes it, gets his money back up, proves that he's worth it, has a really strong 2026, leads Diamondbacks into the postseason again, and then gets a really pretty penny next year, of course. One thing that I do need to mention as well that I haven't, remember the CBS is ending this year. So that's going to maybe affect some of the contracts that we see get given out. Maybe a lot more one-year deals because who knows if there will be baseball in 2027. So there's some interesting things coming out as well. So we'll see exactly how the rest of that goes here. But those are the qualifying offers. In terms of some other news, really quickly to mention that the Royals and Salvador Perez have already come to an agreement. Salvador Perez had a player option, I believe, for 2026. They end up signing a 2-year extension, which null and voids that player option. So Perez will be with the Royals for 2026 as well as 2027. The Oilers have already made the first signing, I guess, of the year. They signed Leody Tavares to a 1-year, $2 million deal, so nothing crazy, but still one of the first signings that we got this year. The Padres hired Craig Stamen as the new manager. I believe this is the last manager vacancy. I'm going to have to go through that and double-check that, but he is taking over. He will now hand off from Mike Schilt and will now lead the Padres into potential postseason in 2026. And then speaking of the Padres, Yu Darvish announced that he will miss the 2026 season undergoing right UCL surgery. So very tough blow there for the Padres. Joe Musgrove may be coming back. I don't know. Plenty of stuff, plenty of offseason rumors and figuring things out. And it's very exciting. It's a great time of the year. It's a time of the year where there's no baseball, which hurts, which sucks, but it is a time where we get excited for the new baseball in 2026. That's going to do it for this episode here today. A little bit longer. Of course, it's the first off-season episode, so there's a lot to go over and a lot to get into. Some episodes will be long, some episodes won't be as long. It just depends on the kind of news that we get given each and every day there. So that's what we have for you guys here today. I love you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you, everybody, so much. And I will see you on Monday.